Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Group Chat, #1 podcast in the world. We have a special guest who popped on the mic today, Vivek Patel, former COO of Postmates. And, you know, he's telling us where all the hot places to eat are. Just kidding. But he does know that. It's secret data. We're talking San Francisco. We're talking stock market. We're talking housing. We're talking hurricanes. It's a great episode. Let's get into it.
Cash.
Ladies and gentlemen, Group Chat.
Cash.
It's $1 trillion. Hot.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Group Chat, #1 podcast in the world. We're going to dive right into it today. We got a lot to cover. First, big news. This is a big headline. It is reported that Mr. Beast turned down $1 billion for his company. Do we know who made the offer?
It's unclear, but isn't he only, 22, 23 years old?
Yeah.
Something around, he's in his early 20s. He appears, I saw him on Rogan, he appears to be a guy that doesn't care about money. He obviously makes a ton of money.
Yep.
And I think he's just true to his brand. And I mean, think about it, if you sell your company at 22, 23 for $1 billion, what do you do the rest of your life? You'll be beholden to someone else. It's pretty tough to recreate the magic that he has with his audience. And props to him turning it down. I like it. I love the move.
Yeah, I mean, he was on a YouTube, I guess his co-host, Akash Singh, asked him, "You've been offered $1 billion for your YouTube channel?" He's like basically saying that people want to be in the Mr. Beast business, and it would have included his channel, then, and obviously an interest in all of his business that he's created. I mean, just from what we've seen, you know, as a content creator, he obviously has an insane reach, insane loyalty. And then what he did with Mr. Beast Burgers just proved that he can sell stuff at scale.
Mm-hmm.
God knows how much.
Which very few people in the world can do.
Yeah, because right now, to date, it's basically just one family.
Right. Kim, Kylie. It's two people, really.
And
And Kanye.
Yeah, it's their one family.
Yeah.
They're the only family on earth that could sell anything at scale. I mean, Rihanna is doing it. So I guess it's a bold statement.
But it's like sub 10 people in the world.
Yeah, that have crazy influence. And it's been the same group of people.
We've always talked about this. Like, just because you're the most famous person in the world doesn't mean you can sell things.
No, like the great example has always been Beyonce, who's such a superstar. And she's always had a hard time selling apparel. And think about how big Savage Fenty is compared to anything Beyonce's created.
Do you think there's an element of just mismanagement there? Because her fan base is rabid. It's as rabid as it gets.
So maybe there's some of that. It's also, there's a certain personality, and you have to be really raw to connect with people where you can sell stuff. Or you think about it from a perspective. Kanye is super raw. The Kardashians, Jenner, are basically an open book their whole life since they were children.
A little too open.
They're full open, yeah. Depending on what sites you go to, it could be very open.
Yeah.
And so they've been an open book basically their entire adult lives. And so fans can connect with them. Everyone knows everything about a Jenner and Kardashian. They know their kids.
It might not be healthy for the people involved, but from a business perspective.
I mean, when they're flying private in their Boeing business jet and they're billionaires, maybe they don't give a fuck.
I would hope not. Because if they do, there's going to be some trauma down the line.
I don't think they seem fine. I mean, they don't seem like they're not the ones ending up in hospitals. Maybe it's the guys they're with, but they are not.
They definitely have. A lot of guys have been ravaged through.
So they're fine. They're mentally unbelievably stable.
Yeah.
And then Rihanna, also another musician that's super raw, relatable, is outspoken. Like Beyonce's it's produced. Everything is produced. Like
Yeah.
the way she communicates with the world is produced. Her Instagram is produced. Her, the way she drops, it's not like she's just out, just grabs the mic and says something. She's not that type of person, and that's fine. She's a true artist, and that's what she is incredible at being an artist. But that doesn't mean you can sell stuff. And it's the same thing. Like the amount of people that have connected with specifically young people is very minimal. It's very minimal.
Yeah, I mean,
At scale, you could name me a ton of $50 million businesses.
you get Clooney. Clooney was able to sell.
Yeah, but not to young people. He was selling to old guys.
No, but he was famous enough and still was able to sell a product.
Yeah.
That I think it's a very limited group of people.
Yeah.
And Mr. Beast is part of that sub 10 people in the world that can do it at scale.
And it looks like he's doing it across categories too.
Because even Jake and Logan Paul can't do it, right?
Well, they're doing it with that drink now. The
Like-
drink is everywhere.
Prime.
Yeah.
And then I guess we'll TBD on the Nelk Boys and Happy Dad.
I think that will get $1 billion outcome too at some large outcome. But it's alcohol, so it's a different, like Mr. Beast just feels like he's like a Walt Disney. Like he's gonna create a Mr. Beast land, and there'll be properties created from it in TV shows and cartoons and burgers and clothing, and he just feels like
And he's maniacal about his craft, which I think, if you're an older person that's just like, oh, there's some random YouTuber, you should listen to him on Joe Rogan, how he systematically breaks down how he evaluates every YouTube clip. And he's so maniacal about creating a clip that goes viral, and he works his freaking butt off.
yeah.
Like this
Where's he
isn't
from?
I don't know. Can someone look that up? But like, this isn't some fly by night, celebrity that just got put on. Like
Yeah.
he worked so hard,
Yeah.
and he probably works, I don't know, 20 hours a day. I don't know if you're doing the amount of content he's doing in businesses.
Yeah.
And he did say in the interview, he's waiting for 10 to 20 billion. So maybe when that comes, he's waiting for 50.
Yeah, I mean, look, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody comes and invests in the Mr. Beast business and gives him the team and the cash to take bigger kind of shots, because that's ultimately what will separate him. Like he could be Walt Disney. I don't know. Why not?
Sure. I mean, he's young
The
enough.
modern Walt Disney is not going to be off cartoon characters.
Yeah, I think the problem is it's different eras, and no matter what, it's fragmented. So as big as Mr. Beast is, like, think about Walt Disney, Disneyland. Like we talk about, you go to Disneyland, there's some like 50-year-old couples that with no kids just walking around.
Yeah.
I don't know if
But that took 50, 100 years to get there. So like, I'm just saying, there's some kid who's 16 years old that's watching Mr. Beast. 30 years from now, they're going to have kids, and they're going to be like, we're going to Mr. Beast land.
yeah, I guess. It's certainly possible. I mean, the only risk he really has at this point is burnout.
Yeah. Well, that's why if he's actually strategic, he goes and gets private equity come into a place, write $1 billion check into the business, go hire a CEO, and just be creative. Like, just be a creative person. Don't run the business. This is where, like, if he gets really smart, which I think like what Kim Kardashian and those folks have done so well, they partner. Like, who's partnered in 818? It's the best people. It's insane people partnered in 818 Tequila. Skims, literally the best operators in apparel they're partnered with. So why
Do we
not?
know if he like signed to one of the agencies, Mr. Beast?
I don't know. He is the agency.
But like, does he have a Kris Jenner in the background?
Like his mom?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Most momagers never work, but Chris worked.
Isn't Lamar Jackson's agent his mom?
Lamar Jackson doesn't have a long-term contract right now. So maybe it's the wrong choice for him.
So we'll have to see how it all pans out. But it's exciting to see what he does next. We'll definitely stay on top
Keep
of
an eye
Mr.
on
Beast's next move.
Yeah.
All right. We have an office here, so people just show up. We have a special guest today. And it's a perfect segue. So Mr. Beast sells burgers through cloud kitchens. And our friend Vivek What did you do at Postmates anyways?
I did a lot of things. But most recently, I was a chief operating officer.
So that's a big title.
I think after CEO, that's next.
Yeah, that's
If I'm
next,
not
right?
mistaken.
It's up there.
So before we dive into you particularly, given what you've seen with like this ghost kitchen creator concept, has anyone done anything remotely close to Mr. Beast, or he's kind of like in a league of his own?
He's in a league of his own. Like when he first launched, I was really skeptical. I thought it was a fad. Like, how can somebody just promote burgers on social channels and, something that take off across the country? But if you look at what he's done and the reviews he's had and the quality he's scaled it at, it's pretty impressive. Nobody's come close.
Wow. So even all these restaurant brands that are trying to do it, they're not picking up traction like.
Yeah, what's unique about Mr. Beast is that he has distribution. So if you are a Five Guys or In-N-Out Burger and you open up a ghost kitchen, you're going to have a lot of demand immediately. But very few brands have that type of reach. And Mr. Beast just taps a different audience. And so I didn't quite see the natural mashup in the beginning, but now it's pretty clear, at least from what I see outside looking in, that's been far more successful than what I would have thought.
So like, can an In-N-Out do this?
Yeah, In-N-Out would be great for this. In-N-Out's not going to. They're personally not into it, but it's...
But they're probably the only brand.
It's like them.
McDonald's,
it's like
probably.
McDonald's, but these are the brands we know of, right? But like there's, call it, I don't know, 500 plus restaurants in the United States. We don't hear of many of these brands, right? And so very few people relative to the scale of restaurants out there can pull this off.
So you just put him in the class of In-N-Out, McDonald's, Mr. Beast.
Well, I wouldn't quite say that, but...
No, but in terms of getting distribution and customer
Reach.
Acquisition, that's pretty... Because before you stepped in, we were talking about how he's like a one of one almost.
Well, he turned down apparently $1 billion for his business.
And so the fact that he's even in the discussion with those names, since this is the business you came from, it's kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, it's insane. It's not something I would have expected like 2 years ago.
Yeah, because there hasn't been anyone, especially at his scale, at his age, to be able to do it. And that's what the phenomenon of it is just absolutely wild.
I mean, what you'd classically expect is that he promotes this thing, people try out the burgers, it's a horrible product, and then it shuts down quietly in like 3 to 6 months. And I think it's been around for a couple of years now.
Yeah. So it's definitely picking up steam.
Yeah, and the quality's held up, right? Like
Yeah.
you can look it up on Yelp. It's not a bad product.
That's amazing. All right. One of the things that we're talking about today is how remote work drove a surge in house prices and rental prices all over the country.
So when Vivek walked into the office, he said it's the first time since pre-pandemic he walked into an office with people in it.
To be fair, have you done any work in the last couple of years?
It's a good point. Postmates sold in 2020.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a bold statement.
It's a fair point. But yeah, it's the first time in 2 years when I stepped into an office, and I've been in offices in the past 2 years, where there were
your
actually
lawyers?
His estate attorney, his lawyers.
where there were actual people working, and it felt amazing.
That's amazing. And so you live in San Francisco, and where basically remote work was invented amongst other great features. But this is pretty fascinating that remote work drove home prices in certain markets. It's not all markets,
Yeah.
but in certain markets, which is interesting because like Phoenix is imploding right now from a
Yep.
home standpoint. I'm guessing that was not a market that was driven by remote work.
No, it's probably like Salt Lake City, some
Austin was big.
Austin, Idaho.
Like
Yeah.
any market where you can get a bigger house and more bang for your buck real estate wise would benefit from it. Like if you're cramped up in a small apartment in SF or New York, it's not the best if you're stuck at home working all day.
So now that, when I was in New York last week, it felt like, at least in certain pockets of the city, that there was people back in the office. What's it like in San Francisco?
It's still pretty dead. Some companies are going back a couple of days a week, but if you look at our downtown, it's nowhere close to what it used to be.
What's interesting is like I'm on Twitter last night and I'm reading how many, like founders are like, here's a thread on why I found out that I could do remote work and build the greatest team ever. I don't know who they're shouting that to. Is that a hiring tactic? Is that like a justification for themselves that like we can't get anyone to come into the office?
I think it's just the Gen Z still like fighting for, I'd never want to go back into the office again.
Gen Z wants to go back on.
Oh, Gen Z does.
Yeah, so one, like those threads, I think that's just ego.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who they're shouting to, but that's not how you recruit like an engineering team. And then, so my wife works at Databricks, and what's interesting for her is that all the young people are dying to come into the office.
Where do they have an office?
San Francisco, and then one in Amsterdam as well.
Oh, wow. And so that's interesting. Why do you think younger... I mean, is it that more technical talent wants to go back in the office, or is it probably the right way to think about it is that older people, call it my age, because we have children, because we were probably living an hour away from where we normally work, that we are now got used to being present at home with our kids, that commute killed us, where young people are living in these urban cities and going to the office is actually a welcomed break? Or what do you think it is?
I think young people still want to meet other people.
Yeah.
You know, they want to socialize with their coworkers. They want to get out of the apartment.
But why don't you think the older person wants to go back in? Like the 40-year-old?
So I think a lot of 40-year-olds do want to go back in. It's just not the rigid 5 days a week, right? Like I'm sure for you have kids, you want to see them throughout the day, help out around a bit. It's just more of a flexible schedule. But
yeah,
I don't know. Would you want to do like, no days in the office?
Me?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
But I think it's also a function of, especially like, let's just talk LA because it's our backyard. Most people live like a 45-minute to an hour to hour and a half commute from where their work is. That's like the average person for the most part. Especially if you're 40 and up with kids, you live in the Valley, you live in Thousand Oaks, Westlake, and you may be commuting to Santa Monica, Century City, downtown. And if you have kids, you're basically giving up 3 hours of your day to a commute. I know people in like the financial services industry that are around our age with kids. They said it's inconceivable to do 5 days a week again.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I'm not driving 3 hours a day and just losing time. And I think people have valued that. They're like, I'm missing out on my kids' like upbringing. Like you live close to the office.
Yeah.
So it's not, you can.
That was deliberate, right? Like, you have to make those choice sacrifices too.
Yeah, but I mean, if you want a house, like, it's completely unaffordable in most of these areas.
Yeah,
to live close. Like, if you want to live in Century City, it's fucking expensive.
Yeah, of course.
So I think that is the dynamic with older people. That 5 days, once you got the taste of this, it's pretty tough to go back, especially if you have kids.
I'm conceptually okay with hybrid. I just remote fully is I forget sometimes that they even work for us when it's fully remote.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh man,
and there's no accountability.
It's
I mean,
tough.
not everyone has Microsoft tracking ability where they track your keystrokes like JP Morgan's doing.
Yeah.
Those are big companies, they can afford it, but like a startup can't do that.
Yeah, and it's as an employer, it's nerve-wracking to think that there's people you're forgetting on your team that you can't have any accountability on.
Yeah, I think the only reason a young person would still want full remote is they've got like 3 side hustles.
Yeah. What are you seeing in San Francisco outside of the Gen Z? You're seeing everyone wants to go back to work? Is that what you're... Then why aren't more companies welcoming people back to the office?
So they're starting to. Like, I think a lot of people want to go in X days a week. Nobody wants to go in like 5 days. It's also that initial reaction of like...
What's Tim Cook doing?
Tim Cook's probably going in 5 days a week.
Probably 7.
Probably 7.
And Apple's bringing in everybody back in as well.
Yeah. That's what, 100%?
I don't know if it's 100% yet, but I don't think they're going to be a remote first company anytime soon.
Yeah.
You know, if you hear the stories, like a lot of these companies are talking about bringing everyone back. Like, what's Facebook and Google doing right now?
Like right now?
It's still hybrid?
It's still hybrid. But like, it's not the fair comparison because like even before they were kind of hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want to work from home 1 day, 2 days a week, you're already doing it.
Is that bus still going from the city to the bus is still going?
I don't know if the bus is still going, but I'd be surprised if they stop running it.
Okay.
What else, given that, you live in San Francisco, everyone has said like the city is basically a ghost town.
The city's coming back. It's like downtown is like pretty empty. That's because that's where the offices were. But where I live in the Mission, or where a bunch of my friends live in like Pack Heights, it's coming back to life.
So I was talking to our friend Zach White, who has been on the podcast. He keeps reiterating that the best place to be right now is San Francisco because everyone's just focused on work and
He
nothing
told me
else.
New York last week.
Well, he said New York has a nice balance.
I mean, it's fun.
Yeah, it's more fun. But he's like, when you go to San Francisco, he's like, everyone's working and everyone's building something. Whereas he's like, maybe a few years ago, because of just complete fuckery, that it didn't feel like the place to be anymore.
I remember a year ago, Chris Dixon, who runs Andreessen Horowitz's crypto fund, said they don't even ask where they're located when they get a pitch. You think that's still going on? Because crypto's remote first. They could be in Ukraine. They could be in
Who's
Miami.
still investing in crypto? That shit's done.
I mean, for a good technology company, why does it matter? I think it matters a lot less where you're based these days.
I know, sure, but the assumption is that it's a distributed workforce. Everyone's working remotely and collaborating. Not that it matters if someone's working out of Atlanta, Georgia, or New York, or San Francisco.
No, but I'm saying is San Francisco was this like powerhouse of a city because it birthed some of the most like revolutionary companies of all time. Now, if people can accept that you can build these companies anywhere, that obviously will change the dynamic of San Francisco. And just, does San Francisco just become just another city? Will it ever gain the only thing to me that can make San Francisco regain its kind of strength is the fact that the best college in the world is right there. And I think if those kids assume they want to be close to campus because they built friends and relationships, they'll probably just live in San Francisco.
Yeah, the city has to be a lot more appealing for that. Like a lot of young kids seem to be going to New York. I think SF had a chance to be kind of what New York is for finance. We blew it. The city just got dirty, we didn't build enough housing, etc. I think it'll still be a strong cluster for technology, but nowhere near as dominant as it could have.
So you just live there because you like the cold weather.
He likes the needles and the poop.
I love the cold weather.
How about the needles and the shit?
We don't have that.
Yeah, it's actually a lot cleaner. I'll give him that. When I was there a few months ago, it felt cleaner.
But you can make the argument also that it could actually, innovation may not be what it was 10, 12 years ago when you had the smartest people that all flocked to one city with all the talent in one 7-mile radius, at least the San Francisco proper. I know lots outside as well, but whatever, in the region, you just probably come up with better ideas when you're just collaborating every single
jam
day.
Sessions.
Yep.
Yeah, jam sessions, whatever. I mean, when did you move to SF? 2007? Back to SF?
I moved probably in 2009.
So I've been visiting Vivek and all our friends in San Francisco since they all moved back in 2009. And like, I know it sounds cheesy, but there was a real magic that was going on during the boom. Like you could just go to any restaurant and the stuff people were talking about in your group of friends was just stuff you would not hear in a conversation in Los Angeles. No. You would not hear it in New York City, right? You wouldn't hear it. It was only in this one like city where people were talking about the future. I remember the first time, what was the pre-Uber concept that didn't ever make it?
Sidecar?
Sidecar.
That's right.
I remember walking Pack Heights with him and we were going to Neil's apartment and he's like, oh, let's get in this car. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? This is before Uber was created. Yeah. And he's like, no, trust me. I was like, you just want me to get into this dude's car? Are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
But that was happening and that was like pretty cool to see. Even like Airbnb was there. Like, I mean,
well, what is pretty cool is that like technology is now more of a global concept. And so you can have these ideas that occur anywhere versus like just in SF. And then what is technology has changed too quite a bit, right? Like it's now seeping into things like prop tech, which while there's a technology layer, you don't necessarily need only computer scientists to run a company like that.
Well, this is interesting news. GM just came out and said, return to office mandate after employee backlash. So they're delaying it. They're delaying their return to office because on Friday afternoon, they required people to come back into the office and people revolted. And I'm assuming GM's workforce is older.
And that's in Michigan. So you can't blame it on Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I actually think it disproportionately is affecting non-technology companies.
Well, I think it's the dynamic we talked about, how older people, once they get the taste of work-life balance,
They've never had it.
They've never had it.
No. They've just
Think about our dad. He'd leave at 6:30 in the morning,
come back
come
at
home at
6.
7 p.m.
Yeah. Imagine if he could have remote work. What would it have changed?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, that's the dream.
Yeah.
If you have kids that are growing up.
Yeah. That's pretty fascinating. What other things are you seeing in San Francisco? Like, obviously, the stock market's going to zero. How does that affect what's going on in? And it's disproportionately hurting technology companies.
Yeah, stock market's going to zero, crypto's down, right? And so
Crypto's going to zero too.
So a lot of wealth destruction.
You know, it's funny. 2 weeks ago, we said 7 trillion year to date has been destroyed. Now it's 9 trillion. So
Yeah.
in 2 weeks, we just added another 2 trillion.
Yeah. I mean, what are people saying when you go to, when you go wait in line for food at the food shelter? Because I'm sure that's where most of you guys are going to be getting food from soon.
Because, back in the day, at least pre-pandemic, when people were actually out and about, the running joke is if you go anywhere in San Francisco, it's someone talking about their Series A, their Series B, IPO. So what's the conversation that you're overhearing now?
I mean, it's still similar to that, like not as much on the IPO, but the clear thing is like a lot of the tourists in technology are probably, going back to other jobs. It's probably becoming more what it was like 5-10 years ago, where you're entering the industry because you actually cared about the company, the mission. It wasn't just a get rich quick type of scheme.
And so, but given you are an investor, you are in the ecosystem, like you're a rich guy. What's going on in rich man world for stock market? Like, how are people thinking about it?
It's the same way we all are. You're seeing your net worth go down 20%, 30%.
He's lucky. 20,
It's,
30. That's light.
nothing.
I'd be dreaming if my net worth was down
well, 23 in the last week.
But you're not panicked. You seem pretty relaxed.
We're all trying to wait it out. But
So you think it's going to turn around? You don't think it's just
I don't know,
free falling?
It can be painful for a long period of time. There's not much any of us can do about it, because if the Fed keeps increasing rates,
So that's what we always talk about here. As long as interest rates are clearly going up, there's no chance the stock market can go up.
yeah, I keep joking with him. It turns out our entire lives were governed by interest rates.
Literally.
Yeah, when you had interest rates were zero from 2008 to 2021, it's easy to make money. You don't have to be a genius.
Yeah.
And I thought it was all
So
of our
now
hard
you have to be a
work.
genius.
Now you have to be a genius.
You have to be really damn smart
Yeah.
and lucky. So my guess is as good as yours, but if they keep going up, it seems like there's gonna be a lot of pain.
But this is to that point. Think about how much innovation was created because interest rates are at zero. It allowed people to back risk assets, and now we have Uber, Airbnb, Stripe, Shopify.
None of which make money.
Who cares? They enabled like an entire new economy.
The problem is they physically don't make money. It's maybe shouldn't have been enabled.
Well, they may make money, right? It depends on the timeline.
I mean, what is the fair horizon for an Uber to make real money? Forget free cash flow, all those like funny metrics.
like 2 years, 2-3 years.
You think they're making profits?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to,
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of these companies didn't make money because, one, they didn't have to.
Yeah.
And then two, it wasn't really rewarded. Growth is rewarded. Now the pendulum's swung back in the other direction, where making real money, not like fake, like adjusted EBITDA, is valued.
A lot of adjustments.
A lot of adjustments.
Yeah, you just adjust the decimal wherever you want. It's profitable.
Just call gross revenue profits.
Yeah, exactly. And so in terms of like building a business, I saw Bill Gurley tweet out yesterday, never been a better time to start a business. I mean, I would argue it's always a good time. I don't know why this time is better than a year ago or 2 years ago. What's your thoughts on that?
It may be slightly better in that at least the early...
Isn't it easier to access capital a year ago than it is today to start a business?
It is, but you experience inflation and everything, right? So if you want somebody to come join your team, something that's very expensive, if they're even like willing to entertain it. And so one benefit is that you can get people who really believe in what you're doing. And like it kind of shows you that you don't need a ton of money to build a very successful business. Like if you look at a company like Squarespace, it's like a $4 billion publicly traded company. They only took 50 million of primary capital in their entire history. And that company's profitable down to the net income line, generate free cash flow. So it may be better in that.
You mean you take revenue, you minus costs. There's money at the end that was black, not red.
Yeah, real money that goes to shareholders. And so it may be like an amazing time because like you'll attract the right type of people and you don't have to pay.
But that employee inflation in salaries, that's not going to go down anytime soon. Like, why would someone who makes $500,000 a year? We saw a job offer yesterday for a kid who's still in college, and he got offered a job at Amazon, Microsoft, and Amex. Mm-hmm. He got the low end. I won't say the companies. What each offered. The low end was 180. High end is 220. I think he's a junior.
Yeah. At the same time, though, like it depends on what he's doing, what his specialization is, right? But you're seeing all these tech companies actually downsizing. Yeah. Right. And so,
but they're not reducing salary. So that person who even got, let's say, didn't get the job they were supposed to get at Google, they didn't get laid off. They had an offer, got rescinded or something like that.
Yeah.
They're not going to walk away from a $500,000 a year job to take a $200,000
No, but if you think
job.
about it differently, this person that you're talking about goes to one of the most elite schools in the country.
Yeah.
And is an elite student and is computer science. Okay. Yeah. So if you take that same person when we graduated college in 2005, I would say a top 0.01% person, if you go investment banking, was making 150.
Yeah.
Inflation adjusted, that's not much higher.
Yeah.
180 to 220.
But the universe
17 years
ago. Be a
ago.
Computer engineer is so much larger than you could be an investment banker. There's not that many investment bankers. There's a shitload of computer engineers.
But then you look at who are the most valuable companies in the world. It's Microsoft, it's Google, it's Amazon. So
I'm just saying
there's more money to go around.
But that's if your expectation as a computer science graduate is that level of salary, and then 5 years out, you expect to make double, let's say, and now this new ecosystem is being built, you're accustomed to a certain lifestyle. Like, why would you take less?
So not everybody's taking that. So if you're typically going out for the Amazon, the Google, it's the same people. Like if you're interviewing at all the investment banks, you're probably not going to join the startup anyway, right? And so it's about risk appetite. Like I remember amongst the interns we had and the ones who went off to smaller companies versus bigger companies, the ones who stuck to smaller companies, they didn't even interview at a Google or a Facebook. Like they weren't really looking for the 500K. They're looking for learning very fast. They were looking for equity upside. They were looking for maybe one day starting their own company. Right?
Yeah.
They didn't really need the stability or the lifestyle at that point in their life.
Yeah. And if you think about now that companies are going to be forced to make money, like even Uber, he's saying within 2 to 3 years has to be profitable. I remember Ryan Peterson from Flexport tweeted out, this is like 6-8 months ago, maybe paying hundreds of engineers $400,000 a year. You can't really build a business that way. Yeah. At least a profitable one.
That's $40 million in engineers.
And it depends on the company, right? So if you're doing like cutting edge computer vision, like AI, etc., like, okay, the engineer gets that, right? But tech has moved past the cutting edge frontier. So if you're like a marketplace or like a Flexport, you don't need the same type of engineer that, Cruise needs to do autonomous driving.
Mm-hmm. That's a fair point.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm just curious to see how it all shakes out because now, everyone got a little taste of like this like high life.
Yeah.
For call it 18 months of like really inflated salaries, really inflated equity. And now you can't do all of it. Like maybe you can give some cash, reduced equity, or you give a lot of equity and reduced cash. And like, I don't know if people inherently are willing to make that sacrifice yet. So I don't know when that shoe will drop.
It'll just be a kind of
gradual,
just know, and like an unspoken word that all the companies come together and say, hey, new starting salary for software engineers. Hey, Google, let's take it down from 300 or whatever the number is to 220. And they're all going to do it in lockstep.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the only way that it happens is if those bigger players, because if you can only make like 10% higher going to a Google, then you'll roll the dice with the startup.
Yeah, completely.
Because that's probably what it used to be. But now it's like 100% in some of these positions.
Yeah. And people are seeing like a split where Some people are going a lot more conservative, sticking to bigger companies. Other people are still very eager about startups.
Yep.
And so I think you attract the right type of people in this environment because you're clearly not doing it to get rich very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, no one's getting rich. Who's getting rich?
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast.
Yeah, Mr. Beast is doing great.
All right, let's switch topics. So it appears there's a huge hurricane coming into Florida.
Mm-hmm.
There was a pretty devastating floods last week in Puerto Rico also, right? Where the power was out.
Yeah, it's from a hurricane.
It's from a hurricane, right?
Yep.
And so this hurricane it looks like it's coming from the Gulf and it's coming up north toward Florida. It looks like Walt Disney World is shutting down.
In Orlando, yeah.
In Orlando. Football games are getting rescheduled. I mean,
the Buccaneers moved to Miami temporarily, but then now they're saying Miami may get hit too. So right now it's Tampa, like the cities that are under highest watch are Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Sarasota, Orlando, Tampa. I think Tampa is like definitely going to get hit, and it's unclear whether it comes to Miami. But I saw our friend Rob Go, who's been on the pod. He was posting from Ball Harbor, Florida, which is right outside of Miami.
Where's north?
It's basically Miami, right?
Yeah, it's like 5 miles.
Okay, and it looked nuts.
Oh, the rain.
Yeah,
it's already raining.
Rob, check his Instagram. Rob G, he's public. He posted some crazy pictures of him in a house.
So it could be a category 4 when it touches down in Florida. That is huge.
Yeah, I mean Florida State is closed.
Hurricanes are so freaking scary.
Walmart has about 40 stores closed. This is not something to be taken lightly because, I mean, the destruction is going to be terrible and infrastructure is going to be completely disrupted.
Yeah. And
man, all the tech folks that moved to Miami, I wonder if
they're all gone. They already left. You know that.
They left, you mean temporarily?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A week ago.
But if their house gets ravaged.
I think Florida is like, they obviously are the most prepared for this because they've gone through this many times. But this seems like not a great time for this to be happening given what's happening in the world. And it could be like, hopefully it's something by the time it touches down, it's just heavy rains and it moves on. But
that's the best case scenario, right?
Yeah. I'm not down with natural disasters.
No.
Very scary.
And with climate change, these are going to just become more frequent
than
less frequent. Think about globally, like in Pakistan, we didn't even talk about it.
Yeah.
Like a tenth of the country was displaced. And that those people are going to die of random diseases because
hunger,
of water being contaminated. And especially in countries where there's no infrastructure, like third world countries, they're just going to get completely obliterated.
Yeah, I mean, now at least, this is happening in America and the resources will be given. God forbid anything serious happens, but it's like, when bad news comes, it just fucking dumps on you. It's not just like, oh, one bad thing happened. It's just, I remember, I think it was in 92 in LA when we had the earthquake, the fires, the riots, all within like a year. And I was like, man, the city just can't take any more of this shit. And it just keeps dumping on you. And I feel like the world is at this point where there's just a lot of calamity happening ever. Like this feels like a little karmic in sense of that, like we've all got too fat the last couple of years thinking we're all like superior human beings. And like now the universe is exacting its balance.
Yeah, it's not good.
And same with what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. I got a lot of alerts today from Wall Street Journal about Russia, Ukraine.
Yeah,
I do not know what's going on over there. They're talking about some sort of deal they're making, but I don't even know what the deal is. I have no idea. I stopped following. I have no idea what's going on, so I don't even know if we should talk about it. Do you know what's going on?
I mean, I've read. I'm not on the grounds, but I think what's clear is.
I mean, I don't want to sit there and act like I read what was going on in Russia, Ukraine. I got blown up by it.
It seems like now nuclear's on the table for Putin. At least that's the assumption. He said all weapons of capability are on the table. So that's not good news.
Did he say that today?
Yeah, it said on CNN. I don't know if it was today or yesterday. He didn't use the word nuclear. He just said all weapons are on the table in their defense.
Yeah.
And then the Nord Stream pipeline got blown up today.
What is the Nord Stream
That's
pipeline?
how they get natural gas from Russia to Germany and a lot of Eastern Europe. So,
and are they saying that like the U.S. is involved with it? That's like the secret.
That's the conspiracy.
That
theory.
was, your Xi theory. It still hasn't come to.
Hey, have you seen Xi?
Have you?
Like, that was my point. That's my point. As long as he hasn't been, I mean, we didn't see Jack Ma for like 6 months.
But he was there.
We didn't see him.
He's around.
Now he's around.
Yeah.
But we didn't see him for a while.
Yeah, but he's around.
But I mean, the same theory. So the kind of chess move, if you want to go full conspiracy, is Vivek and I are actually talking about this at lunch. Like, it's in you. It's if you want Russia to lose, the quickest way is to hurt their economy, right?
Okay.
And if they stop becoming what everyone's relying on in Europe for natural gas, and they figure out which storage and other sources, then Russia becomes less important, and no one gives a shit about them. But then you're backing Putin into a corner who has nuclear weapons. And I think by all accounts, he's losing now, which is shocking. And you have a madman at the helm. So what happens from here? I mean, I don't think anyone knows.
Yeah. I mean, it just looks like nobody knows what they're doing over there.
Yeah, I think everyone underestimated Ukraine. And now we're at a point where we have a guy who's like approaching 70, and this is his legacy.
And I don't care what you say. 70, the guy is living for another 30 years.
Yeah, maybe.
That guy's not, he looks great.
You're talking about Putin.
Yeah.
But I mean, this guy was a KGB operative. He doesn't want to lose. So,
yeah. And I just don't believe that, like, he's just going to, the guy's not giving up.
I know, that's what's scary.
Yeah, I mean, we also overestimated Russia's ability.
Right. Everyone thought it was going to be a 1 month cakewalk war.
Just the equipment breaking down, the corruption involved, people fleeing the draft, like all of it's a bit of a surprise for what you consider to be the second most powerful military in the world.
Yeah, I mean, you can see on social media, there's just like lines of people trying to get out of the country because they don't want to go fight the war. So he doesn't even have public support at home. And, at least Snowden got his Russian citizenship 2 days ago.
Yeah. And what's so funny is the guy tweets out, about his, we're able to be together as a family. We're finally beyond this. And he goes, I'd really like our privacy at this time. Why would you tweet it then?
Yeah.
If
Shut
you
up.
want privacy, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
If people forget about you, they'll leave you alone. But when you constantly have to comment about everything that's happening in America,
you clearly don't want privacy.
Yeah, if you want privacy, private people are not vocal.
Yeah.
Private people aren't vocal, and he's supposed to be the hero that unmasked this like mass surveillance, and he's being housed by
went to
our
Russia
biggest
of all
threat.
places.
yeah, our biggest threat right now.
Yeah.
A place that doesn't stand for freedom nor democracy.
And they love mass surveillance in Russia.
Big fans.
Yeah, they're great at it.
So, I mean, it's interesting choices.
It's very hypocritical.
I get early on, that was the only place you got safe, but you got to figure a way to get to somewhere else. Go to the Maldives or something.
Dubai. Jeez.
Go to Dubai, yeah.
Here's an interesting piece of news, switching topics. Big news. So there's an insurance company called Dajia Insurance. It's a Chinese company. They just put on the market 3 resorts for only $1.3 billion. Let me tell you what you get for $1.3 billion. You get the Montage in Laguna Beach. You get the 4 Seasons in Jackson Hole and the 4 Seasons in Scottsdale, Arizona for $1.3 billion. Hot.
So you're saying it's cheap
It feels cheap.
just because there's a hot property.
I mean, if I was a billionaire,
That's what you'd buy?
I'd buy that right now.
I mean, you can't even get the Phoenix Suns for that. You get 3 hot hotels.
3 hot hotels. I mean, just think about where, like, I don't know where the 4 Seasons Jackson Hole is located. I mean, I don't know in what type of property is it?
It's hot.
Okay.
Amon's number 1, 4 Seasons is 2, but 4 Seasons is in the mix.
Okay. 4 Seasons, Phoenix, Scottsdale, I've seen it. It's great. Montage is on the damn beach. It's like impossible. It's like irreplaceable.
Which Montage is it?
Laguna Beach.
Oh, wow. That's a hot property.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a really nice one.
1.3 billion feels cheap. People say there's not bargains out there right now.
I mean, room rates are higher than ever. So
Yeah.
what's going on?
I mean,
here?
that cohort of people will continue to spend.
They're not affected by inflation.
No. How many rooms is Montage? 500 rooms? There's 500 people a night in the world that would pay $2,500 a night for a room.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful property.
Doesn't that feel like a good deal?
You should buy it.
I mean, I can't afford anything. I can't afford. I'm cutting back on ice cream at the grocery store. You're talking about buying. But it also shows that China is liquidating assets. Like a lot
Yeah,
of
who knows what their liabilities are.
Yeah.
And, maybe the government said we're not going to keep backstopping you guys. And
Yeah.
maybe it's forced sale because it's not going to be friendly for Chinese corporations to own American assets.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
It's better to sell it for 1.3 than get it confiscated.
yeah, it's true. The other most, it's interesting, full circle, last topic. The thing that is the number one article in Wall Street Journal the last 2 days is about, the headline is, the U.S. is running short of land for housing.
I saw that article. That can't be true.
I know. Has anyone driven across the country
Yeah.
or flown? There's a lot of empty space.
Yeah. So, and what I don't understand is like they're using an example of in Tampa, Florida, this family that has 11,000 acres of ranch land. And there's developers are hungry for the land. And apparently like the economics of a developer buying that land for the price they're seeking does not allow them to make affordable housing. So but that could potentially be true, that there is tons of land across America and just the price to acquire that land does not make sense for a builder to build out.
Yeah, if you increase the density of housing, like if you bring on a truckload of new supply, then just have people move around, you'll have affordable housing.
I just don't I don't understand like how you fix the housing problem. I mean, forget New York City. Let's put them aside. That seems impossible because it's just finite land and it's probably incredibly difficult to build anything there. But even in something like Southern California and Los Angeles, like it feels like there's a lot of apartments. Why are they so damn expensive?
And you just got to keep expanding where you're building.
Yeah.
I mean, California's a big state. There's a lot of nothing. We've all driven LA to San Francisco. There's a lot of nothing.
Yeah, but the problem is if you got to drive to work, you're not driving 4.5 hours from Fresno to go to work every day.
Build new industries. I don't know.
No, but even in Southern California, like a San Francisco, right? Like there's a lot of permits, but you can have a lot more. They haven't added as many. So like SF, for example.
Is that just like
Zoning.
political?
Yeah.
Because big builders are heavily influencing local politics and not allowing for permits to be built.
A lot of builders want to build. It's actually more the existing residents. Like, let's say you buy a single family home. For whatever reason, you don't want an apartment coming up next to you.
Yeah.
You're very worried about your home value.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
exactly what Mark Andreessen was talking about
In his neighborhood.
in
yeah.
Atherton, which is one of the richest areas.
They were building townhomes. Yeah.
And it'll affect value. If you have to live in Atherton, I mean, you have to be very rich.
Yeah.
But if you let people who can afford apartments,
Like $2 million apartments.
yeah, they're $30 million homes.
But those $2 million apartments, then they vacate whatever house they were in and it,
Yeah.
like introduces new supply. There was a graph, like I don't remember the details, but it's kind of like if you map population to increase in housing, California's abysmal at it. Like it's like one of the lowest in the country, whereas Seattle has issued like tons of permits and it's kept up with their population growth.
But they have a rent problem too, don't they?
They do. It's just not as worse as here. And so like,
But is LA's problem solvable?
He's saying with supply. That's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
So
I
but
don't
is
know
that
LA
just
well
a permit
enough.
issue then? Like we just have to build higher?
yeah, so at least in San Francisco, it's a permit issue. Like 70% of the city is zoned exclusively for single family, where you can't build like even like a fourplex on it.
Yeah. And what are they? And that's just because neighborhoods are protecting their home values because they know if supply increases, then
Yeah, it's a lot of NIMBYism. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem logical. Like a lot of people, like I have a single family home in SF. I'd love it if we had more apartments.
not in your neighborhood though.
No, definitely in my neighborhood. Definitely in my neighborhood.
Over there.
Over there.
Yeah.
We love that neighborhood over there to
'Cause
have.
it's the only way to solve the problem. Like, because when everything's expensive, right, the city loses its diversity, right? So you were asking earlier about, will SF still be a tech capital? Well, if a starting apartment is very expensive, then no. You can't just have, if your housing is expensive, then you can only work at a Google. You can't actually take a risk and like start a company.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting. I'm also curious to see now that mortgage rates are nearing 7%.
7%. That's insane.
On its way up, likely, if the Fed says they're not going to back down and they're only going to keep increasing until inflation's down.
Yeah.
Because it's priced in the next 3 hikes. But if they have to keep going from there, then you're talking 7.5.
But the real dilemma is no one's going to sell their house because they probably got a 2%, 3%, 3.5% mortgage interest rate. They can't sell their house and buy a new house.
No, it's impossible.
So I don't think home prices go down unless it's forced because of their personal financial situation. So then
We've seen forced selling happening in San Francisco. Like,
Really?
yeah, things are down. Not a ton of it yet, but like, 20%.
wow, that's a huge number.
Wait, forced selling meaning someone needs money?
Yeah, like people who bought it as like an investment property, or maybe they were on like a adjustable rate mortgage.
Yeah. I don't think most people own an adjustable rate mortgages.
No,
though.
most probably locked in like a
Yeah.
fixed rate.
But yeah, I mean, just think about it. I just don't think if you have a low interest rate on your home, why the hell would you ever sell it at
No.
this point?
What has to suck is if you, went all in on remote work, moved to some random town in the middle of the country.
And they call you back?
They call you back, but you bought a house over there. Now you're stuck in some random like city
And then
in the
you
United
walk
States.
into a 7% mortgage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Like I know someone who lives in Westlake, which is a suburb, like probably an hour from here, LA proper, nice suburban area, and his mortgage, which he locked in at the peak of the pandemic, 2%, interest only 10 years, $2,000 a month.
wow.
That would be
That's amazing.
$7,500 today.
Yeah. That's insane.
How many people can scale up from $2K a month to $7,500?
Yeah. That's tough. That's really tough. And I think that the problem is that it's going to be a really tough problem to solve unless what's going to give, because inflation's not going to give, interest rates are not going to give, home prices are not going to give, rental prices are not going to give, jobs are now being reduced.
Think about in the areas around here, given what we talk about, how it's just unaffordable to move, your only way for supply to come if people leave the state.
Which is happening in California.
Yeah. But you need a lot of people leave,
Yeah, you need a lot.
which I don't think is going to happen.
So just, there are going to be no homes for sale.
I just think there'll be no homes for sale. I just don't see prices unless it's a forced sale.
Right.
I think in like,
Well, you don't have an option to go anywhere else unless you're downgrading your life,
yeah,
which would be a forced sale.
yeah. Be interesting. Really interesting. I think the housing thing is interesting because like that is where like most of America's wealth is tied up.
Yep.
And it's important to.
Powell wants to take that away.
I wonder what if Trump was running, what would he do right now?
I think he'd be doing things differently.
He'd go beat
Just-
up Powell?
Yes, I think he would. I think he could beat up Powell.
I mean, he tried to steal the election.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he would.
I think he would just have like, just terrorize him.
And just, so let's assume interest rates never, it was a modest raise. What's the secondary impact of that?
What sustained inflation?
6 months of, because what I saw an economist say that they use the freight prices as like peak of inflation. Freight prices were already coming down without any impact on interest rates. So there was some like impact happening organically of just everything that we've seen. The money just ran out. Like that's my one counter is like why we don't need to do this is no one has any money anyways. Like
So-
the average person, forget rich people.
I guess they
average
just
person.
have to see it real time that it's actually happening. So we just need just a terrible Q3, right? Companies just guiding lower, consumers not showing
I don't
up.
think that should be a reflection of how
Because
the Americans' health
the
is.
anti-freight argument is that when you look at it broadly over the cost of goods,
Yeah.
it's just a fraction of the price. So even if it's down, 60 to 80% off its high, it's really not lowering the cost of making goods. It's just one small component of it. Sustained inflation. If you talk to economists, they say it's the worst thing that a society can go through. But then, where were all the economists in 2020 and 2021? Now you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Luckily, we get the inflation report every month, so they can adjust.
I mean, I just would not like. I mean, I was reading that one of the biggest risks for global collapse is the pound just completely falling apart.
I mean, the other
which is now at $1.07.
So why is that though? Like meaning like why is that the thing that's?
I think because it'll be the first like mega currency
Got
to
it.
just kind of collapse at like double digits because I mean I think it's down like 28% this year.
Yeah, and if you think about just globally, because interest rates are going up.
After the Queen passed, it all changed. The pound has fallen apart.
Well,
She was holding the whole damn
the
country
prime
together.
minister had some like sweeping tax cuts that everyone reacted poorly to.
Yeah.
They just don't think she knows what she's doing. The other interesting thing is because interest rates are rising, everyone's putting more money in the US dollar. US dollar's stronger than ever against every currency around the world. Now you have third world countries that their currency's down 30, 40, 50%. They rely on exports, so they can't even sustain their country from energy prices to food
Yeah.
because everything's 30,
They
40%.
rely on imports, you mean?
Yeah, imports.
Yeah.
Like importing energy, importing food.
I think it's actually could potentially be a deflationary impact for Americans because like, dude, with the euro down like to 95 cents, when you import goods, you get a 5% discount
Yeah.
immediately, right? Like
Powell's like eliminating country after country.
yeah. Maybe he's a genius. I mean, what's stronger than the US dollar right now?
And whenever these things settle, what's very clear is the only place to put money at scale is the American economy.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't.
China's uninvestable.
Yeah. I would be scared.
Western Europe, no one's putting money there.
Yeah.
Other than maybe Four Seasons.
Yeah. I mean, if you could pick up a couple Four Seasons, it'd be nice. But I wouldn't touch anything there.
No.
It's too risky. India's too risky.
Yeah, and the emerging economies are all unstable.
Yeah. USA. On that note, do we have any shout outs? All right. No shout outs. Have a great week. I know it was a little somber episode just with the whole world collapsing and all, but things will turn around. Especially if you live in America, we always win. If you don't live in America, you should consider coming here.
It's great to be an
Immigration,
American.
I think, could be a huge benefit on wage inflation.
Yeah, can play. We just got to let people in.
Yeah, I think we got to let everybody in. I don't know where they're going to live, but we just got to let people in.
That's a problem, right?
Yeah, but it will help with, I think, wage inflation, specifically in the service sector. Huge.
Yeah, can play.
All right, we will see you back here on Thursday. Have a good week.